Look at what God has given us. This kingdom, a son, and each other. So few ever know this happiness. We are strong.
God save the Queen!
It is strength enough.
You show strength and courage. You are the Queen.
England is a land of women and children in our army's absence. Someone must defend them.
You dare to defy me? I am king!
Men and women of England, I promise you, I would never stop fighting.
Well, good morning, Charlotte. Rory, how are you?
Hi, we're good.
Morning,
How are you?
Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for joining me today. Real exciting to talk to you about season 2 of The Spanish Princess. Charlotte, let's begin with you. Queen Catherine has everything she's wanted. The man she loves, the crown of England. What more can she desire for season 2?
I mean, I think that's part of the thing in season 2 is that this is a woman who gets everything she wanted, and yet it gets all taken away from her. I think it's really powerful, and it's really it's really interesting to see a character who maybe it's not all what it's cracked up to be, and who everything that she's striven for has been kind of taken away from her, and then leaves her with, and yet she still doesn't stop fighting.
And Rory, united in marriage and ruling as joint monarchs, is strength enough to get them through this season?
I think that strength is maybe a bit of a dead end for them. I think that if Henry was maybe a bit more open and vulnerable with Catherine and could talk about his struggles, his emotional struggles, maybe go to couples therapy, that they might have done a bit better. I think that the kind of inherently masculine trait of carrying everything on your shoulders individually really works against Henry this season, and it's really fun to play, but I think it's a dark place to live. So I feel like sometimes strength isn't the answer, but he certainly tries.
And Charlotte, Catherine proves herself this season as a diplomat and a queen, and taking to the battlefield pregnant. I mean, that's the ultimate girl power, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's also like it's girl power, but it's also like she gets to be one of the boys. Like that felt really, really interesting, because she was operating in this like very male world and operating in a male role, but also whilst carrying a child in her most feminine possible. So I thought it really played with kind of ideas of gender really well. And then she has to go back to Henry and be a kind of passive, adoring wife and stroke his ego and tell him that it was nothing. Like she has to fulfill every single of those roles all at once. But it was, to be honest, like just getting to go to battle and fight in that armor just felt really, really badass.
And Roy, Henry VIII, he wants an heir, and there's pressure on the marriage. He fears that he's upset God, which drives him mad.
Yeah, I think that for any family trying to have a child, it can happen very easily, or it can be a huge struggle. It can often take down relationships through, trying to use IVF even today. It's like a modern struggle. Adoption can often be a huge struggle for families or nascent families. And on top of that, he knows that he might have his head chopped off if he can't sire a son. So, I mean, any external circumstances can put pressure on a relationship. And I think that is happening to the nth degree in this season, which is hopefully entertaining to the viewers. But it's not great for poor old Henry and Catherine.
And Charlotte, let's go back to your battle and wearing that armor. Tell me about them fitting you for the armor that day you put it on. I mean, that looks so amazing.
Yeah, it felt pretty incredible. The first time I put it on and we were in a real rush trying to get to the end of the day, and walking out and all the girls kind of seeing it for the first time with that adrenaline pumping, because I knew that we were in a rush, just felt really, really empowering. But yeah, it was like so exciting, because I'm such a kind of like small person, and getting to like, to dress up so fiercely made me feel really strong.
And Roy, same for you. When you put on that costume, does the character just come alive? It just takes little effort for an actor because you're surrounded in those times.
Yeah, no, it's not just helpful. It's almost impossible to play the character without the costumes. Like sometimes we might do a run through of the scene for camera placement before we get into costume and makeup, and it just doesn't feel the same. And it certainly throws me. I'm just not a good enough actor without the beautiful costumes to feel the stature required. And I mean, these characters,
he's a very good actor, but their costumes definitely ground performance.
They sure do. And but the characters, the costume and the clothing is very important to them. It signifies their place in society. And these fabrics are so expensive and rare back then that you're really wearing your importance literally on your sleeves. So, I mean, it all meshes together, and they're wonderful costumes, and the costume team are incredible. So we're very lucky.
Well, congratulations on season 2. Thank you both for joining me today, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughtful questions. Thank you.
Aaron, Stephanie, good morning.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for joining me today. I'm really excited to talk about The Spanish Princess season 2. And I guess we'll start with Stephanie. Motherhood seems to be the focus for Lena for season 2, raising her family and all her sons.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. It's the next phase for Lena. You know, she goes through a massive roller coaster. She didn't expect to come to England and find a handsome soldier to marry, you know. So this is kind of the continuation of that. After everything that they've fought for and everything that they've been through, it's finally, you know, there's more of a focus on Lena and her home life and protecting her children and trying to be the rock for her family as much as she has been for Catherine. So motherhood definitely plays a part, and how that also affects things like their relationship and her relationship with Catherine, because children and the prospect of motherhood this time around in general definitely plays a massive part. So yes, it's been lovely to explore the themes of motherhood and fertility and things like that.
And Aaron, as one of Catherine's guards comes great responsibility, but Oviedo wants to try to live an ordinary life. Is that even possible?
I think you got to try and balance work and life in general. I think it's difficult when you're working in Tudor times, you're working in the royal court, all the scandal, all the drama. And when you come home, you can't not tell your other half about what's been going on. But I think he does his best to try and live the normalist of lives that he can do under the circumstances.
And Stephanie, Lena's such a good friend, but she can't be happy unless Catherine is happy, right?
Yeah, and that's probably one of the battles that she goes through in part 2, is actually discovering her own happiness and what brings her peace. Because I did find in the first season, she sacrificed a lot to just make sure that Catherine was okay. And this time around, it's, you know, we kind of see more of what Lena wants, and ultimately Lena just wants a life of peace. She just wants to live a very simple life. She wants to, you know, do the things that make her happy without losing the loyalty of being a good friend to Catherine. But that tug and that, you know, turmoil continuously sort of plays out within her. And it makes for very juicy storytelling and character building and playing, which is great.
And Aaron, can you take me through a typical day getting ready for shooting a scene? I'm sure there's a small army of crew and actors that surround you. It must be no small task to get ready to shoot a scene in this series.
Yeah, there's a lot of people involved with lots of different moving parts, and everybody who works on the show, they were so good at their job, and they were so friendly and so nice. You really felt welcomed and like part of a big family. But the bigger scenes, there was a lot that went into it. For myself, I always had a lot of help from the props guys, because my utility belt full of weaponry, sound a bit like Batman there, but you know what I mean. My belt with the weapons on it, they always prepped that for me. The costume people, they were amazing. Also, the makeup guys, they were just great. It was a real kind of like, symbiosis, might be the wrong word to use, but it all worked really well together to make it the best it could be.
And also, Stephanie, for you as an actress, stepping into the character of Lena, the costumes and the settings, it must be easy to step into that character. And by the way, you look beautiful today. I love that dress.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, there's something wonderful that happens when you put on these incredible dresses. I mean, they were made to fit my frame. They were handmade, and I was measured up for them. And so there's a certain amount of pride that you have when you're wearing them. And I genuinely felt really beautiful in these dresses. I mean, this one particular dress, this green dress, every time I see it hanging in my trailer, I'd be like, okay, today's gonna be a great day because I'm wearing the green dress. But obviously it comes with its hardships. I mean, I don't know how any women got anything done wearing these corsets in those days, and I commend them hugely for that. But yeah, the costumes and the places that we got to film and the set, it all helps to bring the world together. And
not to leave you out, Aaron, you looked handsome too. So yeah, you look great today too. So.
Thanks. No, everyone today has been talking about Stephanie and how beautiful she looks. I'm glad that, you know, I mean, you saw. I tried, man.
I gotta spread the love. I gotta spread the love.
Thank you. You know, like I put effort in. I moisturized. Like people gotta help me out here, man. Give me one.
You look fantastic. You look fantastic. Well, thank you, both of you, for this opportunity, and I love the series. And we'll talk again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
Laura, Georgie, good morning. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? I'm good.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Well, thanks for joining me today. I'm very excited about season 2. So, Laura, let's begin with you. Rumor has it, a love story for Maggie this season. Thomas More. D, can you dish?
Yeah. Well, so I mean, they're both like super religious, pious people. So it's their level of steamy romance. So it's quite. But I love it. Yeah, it's a chance for us to see Maggie have some happiness. Really, she finds a friend and a sort of confidant who is there for her. But yeah, it's very difficult for them. He is a married man, so it's not all as it seems. But it's a lovely part of her story, and Andy Buchan, who plays Thomas More, is fantastic.
Henry sisters, their story is pivotal this season. They're standing up for choosing their future, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. We see so much more of Meg this series, and her journey is so exciting and bonkers. And yeah, she really has a hand in creating the future that she wants to create, whether for better or worse. And it's really interesting because I think that her and Henry are so similar, and that's why they butt heads. I think that she's equally intelligent, equally as capable as him, but obviously he sees her as inferior because she's a woman. And so they have this really interesting relationship this series, and they really do get into it with each other. And I think people are going to really enjoy that, because in the last series they were kind of they had that sibling rivalry, but they were also such a support for each other. And it's really interesting to see how that relationship evolves in this part too.
And Laura, how is the monarchy for season 2? Has Maggie noticed a madness brewing in Henry?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, I think she's always cautious, Maggie. She doesn't trust the royals at all. And so, yeah, she's looking on at Henry, who she's never, had the same relationship as she had with Arthur, with Henry. She thinks he's vain and sort of selfish. And the closer she gets to Catherine, I think the more she worries for her and sees how Henry is unreliable. But she's his aunt, and I think there are some moments in there where she really does try to be a help to him. But yeah, you can see the beginnings of the kind of Henry VIII that we all know and all have in our minds. It's sort of beginning to creep in as his paranoia gets worse.
And Georgie, is this the best part for an actress? I mean, the character comes alive, the setting, the costumes. It must be so easy to step into character. And Laura, you can answer this too.
Yeah, it's a dream. Like, a role like this is really just a dream, because so much of the work in terms of centering yourself in the period is done for you by the locations and the costumes. And we have such an incredible design team in all aspects in The Spanish Princess. And then also when I was looking at the scripts, you know, Meg's life is just so insanely crazy, bonkers. And I could not wait to kind of dive into that challenge. It's so juicy. The whole thing is so juicy as an actor. You have so much to play with. And it's also wonderful because our cast as a whole is just such a talented cast. And so you're sharing scenes with other talented people and like challenging each other and bringing out the best in each other and kind of playing and trying things. And that's when you get the really good stuff. That's when you get the real magic. It's really fun.
And Laura,
I mean, it's a great thing to work on. I think every actor dreams of working on something as epic as this. And yeah, having this sort of world to step into of the costumes and the setting makes it really fun. And yeah, you're working in a team that is huge. Like your crew is huge, your cast is huge, and that's wonderful to be a part of that.
Well, it's great to see girl power in history finally being displayed. And thank you both so much for speaking to me today. And we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Emma Matthew, good morning from Las Vegas. How are you?
Hi.
Very well,
Hello,
thank
Las Vegas. I love your backdrop. It looks very cool.
Well, thank you. I had to do it up nice. I even tried to find a shirt with a little bit of a crest on it this morning.
I'm loving it.
I like that concept control.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you for joining me to talk about season 2 of The Spanish Princess. Emma, let's start with you. There's a sadness and tragedy for season 2 for the royal family and a strain on their marriage.
There is, but there's, I mean, this season 2 is about motherhood. It is about marriage, and it's about the lie that Catherine told in season 1 coming back ultimately to bite her. But it's not a simple story of tragedy. I think the thing that people don't know about Catherine and Henry is they were in love and they were together for 24 years and she was the love of his life. So I think what we see in season 2 is real high highs and low lows. They go through all of the torments that married people now also understand, but some that are just their own because they were king and queen, and the particular pressures that puts on them as a woman and a man, a wife and a husband, and a queen and a king.
And Matthew, the show is inspired by the novels The King's Curse and The Constant Princess. Have you tried to remain faithful to those stories as much as possible?
No, we didn't really. Sorry,
it's television, right?
Sorry,
it's TV.
Sorry, yeah. I mean, the books stand up and they're there on their own right. We didn't really use much in the end from the books. We found ourselves developing and running with the characters. We felt very confident in that world, so we kind of went off a little bit more and did our own thing. But of course, we very much are covering the same ground that Philippa covered in those books.
Except with characters like Lena and Oviedo, who've become such a fundamental part of the show and beloved characters. They don't exist in Philippa's books at all. And we were very passionate about telling these stories of people of colour who were really there, who were there in the history. And it is time that period dramas allowed those Black characters to have their own stories.
And Emma, for season 2, you show a woman's struggle to have a child and the anguish and strain it can cause. Has that been done before on television?
Well, I don't think so. If it has, I haven't seen it. And I think this is something that, I mean, it's extraordinary. Even in 2020, it's still something that it feels that is brushed under the carpet. It's in the shadows. It's something that women and men, of course, struggle with, and infant mortality and problems conceiving. It's still sort of not talked about. And it seems extraordinary that it isn't. And it's a fundamental part of women's lived experience that should be allowed to breathe and exist in drama. And we should be able to look at this and talk about our experiences. And actually, while we were making the show, and she's very happy for me to talk about it, my niece gave birth to a little boy who only lived for 90 minutes. And the number of people around her who had similar experiences was extraordinary. I couldn't believe how many women and couples experienced this. So it's time we did put it in the middle of a drama, and we allowed it to find its place and to be talked about.
And Matthew, it takes a small city of crew and actors to pull off a series like this. What is the single greatest challenge? I know there's many facets to this series, but what is the single greatest challenge for you in producing The Spanish Princess?
I think look, battles aren't battles fun to watch, but my goodness me, they are so protracted to plan and execute.
I can imagine.
Yeah, I mean, Flodden, the battle that we have in episode 2 between the English and the Scots, that was a very big deal, and trying to find a way of pulling it off. We don't, unfortunately, or fortunately, we don't have the quite the same size budget as a Game of Thrones, but it does require us, therefore, to be very inventive about how we approach things. But it's, yeah, that was a very big challenge, but also just kind of the endless getting in and out of costumes. Like if you make a modern day show and a guy's changing between one T-shirt and another because you're filming one episode in the morning and another episode in the afternoon, it's not too big a deal. But when you're talking corsets and petticoats and overcoats and armor and hair changing.
But also makeup changes, because we cover such a huge span of time that they have to look different from one episode to the next.
So those costume changes can be 2 hours. They can really make or break a day. So those
controlled. Controlled insanity. Yeah. And finally, Emma, today, you described this series as a very particular view of history, girl power.
Did I?
Yeah.
Keep suggesting girl.
Oh, okay.
So the internet said.
I mean, I think it's about revisiting history and telling it through the female point of view. Women have been largely excluded from history. The books that exist are usually the stories of white men and the battles they won and the children they begat. And, you know, 51% of the population is female, and it is really important, even where we have to invent some of it and use dramatic license because those women's stories were not recorded. It is so important for women to feel we have our place there, that we existed, that we were part of the story. And similarly for Black people, that they were part of the story because they were.
Long overdue. It was long overdue.
It is. It really is. And so I think there's a real thrill for both of us in creating these shows where we do get to say what were the other people thinking and feeling and what were their stories. And you stand on the shoulders of the facts we know from history, but the rest you inhabit with what you think and feel that they may have experienced.
Well, Emma, Matthew, congratulations on season 2. It's epic by all means and by all definition. Thank you for joining me today, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, great. Take care. Take care in Las Vegas.